Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And today, whenever you're listening to this, we preview Sharks Flyers, a great discussion as we both are heading towards cratering for Carlsson. I think I'm going to land with that. So I have Rachel on from Locked On Flyers. We're going to talk about the Flyers season, how it's gone, Shark season, how these two teams match up, and then give some predictions and how we think this game is going to go. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin, San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this bad boy on YouTube, where I had to celebrate my Flyers heritage by breaking out the Lindros jersey for today. And I have Rachel on. We're going to talk some Sharks, Flyers, kind of a really fun, if you kind of go back, a lot of high-scoring games between these two. But before we do get into that, do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline's got you covered the season, more props, odds, and lines than before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And Rachel, it's been a while. Last time I think we talked was after Martin Jones joined the Flyers. So it's been a little bit. How was that, Martin Jones? What a guy.
Honestly, no, in all sincerity, what a guy.
Yes.
He did some real good work for the Flyers there. Lets in one soft goal every other game. But other than that, was pretty reliable as a backup. So thank you, sir,
he's
for your
been killing
service.
it in Kraken terror land right now. It's kind of crazy. I'm glad that he found his game, and sometimes you know how it is where teams and players, sometimes everyone needs a fresh start. So good to see him doing well in Seattle. But yeah, the Flyers, the bounce back everybody needs is in Philadelphia. So Rachel, how are you doing? Again, I know it's been a while. We're both very teams that are kind of similar, but not similar. Similar in the standings, but very different styles of play. So let's go ahead and get started with the Flyers. And Sharks Flyers played early in the season. Sharks won 3-0, but what's kind of been the story of the Flyers since that happened?
Well, I think, for a good portion of the beginning of the season, the story was the injuries, right? Where it seemed like just about everybody was out and we were icing an AHL team. And that's happened to a lot of teams this season, it feels like. But, we got Travis Konecny back, like pretty much everybody except Sean Couturier is back now. We've got a couple other guys out that I would like to see play. Tanner Lazinski is out. And then Cam Atkinson was just announced that he had a season-ending injury. He's going to have surgery. So, Cam Atkinson was seen as like a winger on your top or second line. Sean Couturier is our 1C. We're not even going to talk about Ryan Ellis because in Flyers land, he barely even exists as a human being. I mean, many apologies to him. Feel terrible for the situation, but in terms of the hockey, yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, and the Flyers, it seems like for you guys, it's we'll get into a little bit more into Carter Hart, but it seems like Carter Hart came out as a rookie, right? Flyers finally found a goalie. Past couple seasons been a little rocky, but then this year we finally got the Carter Hart that we were waiting for, right?
Yes and no. I feel like that Carter Hart was always there, that, especially last year and a little bit the year before, it was what was happening in front of him that was the problem. And he was being relied on too much. And to a large extent, I think that's the same case this season as well, where John Tortorella is preaching a defense first, play the right way kind of style here. And that puts a lot of pressure on the goaltender because they're going to make mistakes, right? And I think that in order to eke out some wins here and there, John Tortorella is putting Carter Hart out on the ice too much and not using the backup enough. I think he already has the most games played of any goaltender in the season so far.
That's John Tortorella running a goalie into the ground. Who could have thought? Yeah, you brought up the injuries before, and the Sharks have actually been relatively healthy, especially when you look at their big names, right? Erik Carlsson, knock on wood, hasn't missed a game yet. Hurdle, the only 2 games he missed was because of suspension. Tomas Hurdle or Timo Meier, Logan Couture, like a lot of their big name guys who, maybe a little bit injury prone in years past, have been playing every game with the exception of Hurdle's suspension. But the Sharks, their big problem is kind of the back end of the goaltending. James Reimer has played pretty well this season, but he's, again, kind of being relied on a little bit too much, especially for an older goaltender. And then Kaapo Kähkönen, who the Sharks traded for last offseason and was expecting to kind of make that leap as your potential starting goaltender, potential goalie of the future, has been abysmal this year. And he's got I think he has the second worst goals saved above expected in the NHL. And he's just been terrible. Reimer got hurt for a little bit. He kind of came in and played poorly most of the time. He had a shutout versus the Canadiens, but I mean, it's the Canadiens, right? And that's kind of been the story for the Sharks, where they've been playing a lot of fun offensive games and they've had no problem scoring the puck, but they can't stop a nosebleed right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams kind of match up, where the Flyers, we want to play Tortorella, grind out a 2-1 win. Carter Hart makes a bajillion saves. And the Sharks, who are like, let's run and gun. Everybody gets 6 goals. No problem.
Right.
We don't care. Yeah. So, I think we'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. But I mean, I think that's kind of been the story for the Sharks, is they've been playing a lot of fun offensive games, but at the end, they just can't score. They just can't outscore their problems.
Yeah, it's interesting because for the Flyers, it's been more of that traditional race to 3 goals, right? If you get 3 goals, you have a chance to win the game, and they just haven't gotten there very much. And it is kind of the opposite. And I think, my outside observation of the Sharks is that, it's not a great team, but at least you're having fun, right? Because you have Erik Carlsson, who's been one of my favorite stories of this season so far, that him returning to form makes me so happy in many, many ways. And you do have some exciting players who can do that run and gun, like you said. But, with the Flyers, they're just sort of coming into that right now, partially because of injuries and partially because of finding chemistry, that I feel like we actually have an NHL top 6 right now that can do some of those things. I think Travis Konecny is having a really wonderful season on that front, and Morgan Frost is playing the best hockey of his career so far right now. And there's a couple other young guys who are playing really well. Veterans aside, I think that JVR is maybe the one who's playing most consistent right now. Kevin Hayes is scoring a lot of goals and making some really good offensive plays, but he is not playing defense whatsoever. So he can be a liability out there.
Defense is overrated anyway. Sorry, Erica. Defense is for nerds. Go score a bunch of goals and have fun. Before we get into kind of what's happening with Carter Hart, kind of talk about the big storylines for this game, do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. Today's episode is brought to you guys by BetOnline. If you guys don't know, they're your number one source for betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You've got NFL, which is getting close to the playoffs here. You have college bowl season. You got all the really big bowls happening this weekend. You've got basketball, NBA, and college. You have World Juniors. They've got you covered for everything you need at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, which you do because you're listening to one right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info in. So head to their websites today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we're back with Rachel to kind of start digging into this game. I think we have to talk about Carter Hart, right? It's been kind of propping up the team, as you said. Out with a concussion. out at practice today, I guess. So he's traveling or not traveling. He's traveling. What's up with Carter Hart right now?
Yeah, the communication on this has been the big issue with the Flyers. So he did suffer a concussion in the last game against Carolina, where Sam Ersson had started the game. Carter Hart came in relief and then was injured, and Sam Ersson had to then finish the game
Oh
in
no.
net, which is always like the
Yeah, you've
awkward.
been pulled, but I need you to go back out there right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was awful on all fronts. But that being said, we had the holiday break and then come back to Carter Hart at practice, first day back, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's okay. That's great. We'll move on." And then at practice on Wednesday, I actually attended Flyers practice on Wednesday at the practice facility, and he was out there on the ice. All three goaltenders were out on the ice, including Felix Sandstrom, the regular backup for Carter Hart. And so we're all just kind of confused by that. And as it turns out, and then while I was there, we get the information from the team that he's been placed on IR, that Carter Hart's on IR, but he's out there on the ice in practice. So what is going on here? Turns out they retroactively put him on IR as a precaution because he's still in concussion protocol. So he is cleared to practice, but not cleared to play in a game yet. And so he's apparently going to go on the road trip, but he's not going to play against the Sharks. We're going to see Sam Ersson again because Sam Ersson actually did have a good third period against Carolina, and John Tortorella wants to see more of him in net rather than going with Felix Sandstrom, who was out sick for like a week and is a little bit cold. So that's kind of where we're at. My co-host on Locked On Flyers, Russ Cohen, suggested it may not be a good idea for Carter Hart to fly post-concussion, that can wreak havoc in your brain cavity. But I'm unaware personally of the medical rules around that. But I think that, so it's been kind of a mess from a communication standpoint. Once you put it all together, it makes sense. But the upshot is you're going to see Sam Ersson in net.
Yeah, and like that's part of with concussions, right? Is you have to part of the protocol is you have to kind of get out there and work, kind of get some exercise and kind of see how it goes,
like
and
see how you're doing, yeah.
See how you're doing, and then see how you respond the next day, right? That's kind of like part of the concussion protocol is working your way through it, right? You don't want to just go from not doing anything for a week and then okay, go play out there, go play a game. It's part of working back up to it. But yeah, it seems like the kind of checking on Flyers Twitter today was seemed like everything was going fine and peachy in Philly as nobody knew what was going on. So but yeah, it's
yes, we have a way of life in Philadelphia with sports, and we have the scale between cocky and distraught, and there is no in between.
There's no in between, right? Yeah,
So
we're very quiet
distraught.
San Jose. Yeah, very quiet San Jose Twitter, where we have like 3 beat writers, and it's very much like chill for the most part. It's basically the Sharks should trade Erik Karlsson at all times because 1, his contract's terrible, and then 2, he's playing good, so maybe you can offload his contract. And then when do we see Eklund and Bordelot? That's basically all of Sharks Twitter right now. That's it. So but with the Sharks, right, Capo Kakinen is going to be starting for them in this game. James Reimer played on Tuesday against the Canucks, let in 6 goals. Part of them James Reimer probably wants back. Part of them is the defense just being bad. Matt Benning, who left the game on Tuesday, practiced a little bit on Wednesday, but don't expect him to play. So it's going to be Erik Karlsson and 5 left-handed defensemen running out there. So that should be really fun. Yes. You don't need it's fine. Erik Karlsson just going to play just with all 5 defensemen. It's going to be great at some point. But, I think the interesting thing for this game is, the old saying is styles make fights, right? And Tortorella is, like we talked about before, Tortorella is kind of lock it down, kind of keep things quiet, try to get to 3 goals and grind out a win. And the Sharks are like, hey, let's just run around and let Erik Karlsson and Timo Meier do fun things. So, I think that's going to be kind of how this game decides is who can kind of infiltrate or kind of control the game, right? If the Sharks can kind of get their offense going, or if the Flyers can kind of lock this down. And how do you kind of see? I mean, with the Sharks, it's mainly their top six, and then the bottom six kind of just do things. But how do you kind of see the Flyers? What's their game plan, I guess, for this game?
Well, I think it's really activating that top line. That's Morgan Frost with JVR and Owen Tippett, who is somebody we got from Florida as part of the Claude Giroux deal last season, who has gotten, I think, a little bit better this season. He still needs a little bit more work on his shot in terms of accuracy, but he definitely has the aggressive style that we need that complements. Morgan Frost is a very playmaking center in terms of he's a pass first guy. So having JVR who's net front and then Tippett who's going to come in on the rush, I think is a good balance for that top line. And, as long as they're firing, I think they can do a lot. And then we have Noah Cates, who is a rookie. He played some games last season, but came out of the college game. He is just such a rock solid, smart two-way center that really, thinks defensively and is really good at anticipating the play. And you have him centering Joel Farabee and Travis Konecny, who are two very offensively minded guys, right? So if we can get that top six going and then cross our fingers that the defense works. I'm not sure what the pairings are going to be. Tortorella was rotating in practice the last couple of times and hinted that Cam York could get some time with Ivan Provorov on the top pairing. But honestly, we won't know until warm-ups what is going to happen there. But, for the last few games, it's been Provorov with Rasmus Ristolainen and then Travis Sanheim with Tony DeAngelo on the second pairing. And York has kind of rotated in with your old friend Braun and
Justin Braun.
Yes. and Nick Seeler. So, not sure what's going on there, but we'll see.
Yeah. And for the Sharks lines, so probably going to be similar to what we saw, couple little tweaks, but similar to what we saw last time. So looks like they're going to continue to have the Hurdle-Meier split. Meier, Couture, and then Barabanov. Barabanov was missing from practice Wednesday, but it was a maintenance day. He should be good to go. Matt Nieto, origins unknown. Tomas Hertl, Kevin LeBanc on your second line.
Origins unknown.
Nick Bonino, Nico Sturm, and Svechnikov on your third line, and then Jonah Gavich, Lawrence, and Lindblom on the fourth line. So it'll be interesting to see how, because I mean that Hertl, for most of the season, we've seen Hertl, Meier, and LeBanc, and they've been an excellent line driving most of the Sharks offense. I guess David Quinn right now is looking to kind of maybe try to find a little bit more balance by splitting them up. We know Couture and Barabanov, you can't split those guys up because they just work well together, and their stats when they're separate are just terrible. But when they play together, for some reason, it just works. But so having Timo Meier though on that line, and the way Timo Meier is playing right now, he's already at 20 goals this season, and that's including not scoring for the first 9 games. So Timo Meier, I think, is going to continue to just carry the Sharks as he's been doing. And Erik Karlsson on the back end has just kind of, like as we talked about earlier, has had a renaissance season, and potential Norris caliber. He's on pace for 100 points, which out of a defenseman on a team that is bad would be ridiculous if he gets to 100 points. So before we get into kind of the roadmap for each team, how we think the Flyers are going to win this game, or what needs to happen for the Flyers to win this game, and what needs to happen for the Sharks to win this game, do want to take a quick break. Let you guys know about something very, very important, with a message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. If you're hanging out with a few friends, New Year's Eve is this weekend, right? Hanging out with friends, putting back a couple drinks becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You think about calling for a ride. You live nearby. It's no big deal. It's not, guys. It's very important. You make sure you either get a ride, have a friend pick you up, whatever you need to do. Don't drive while being drunk. You think about the odds of you getting pulled over anyway. Even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You could lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You could kill somebody. Everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop people from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think about driving after having a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. And now for an awkward transit. I always hate transition. It's like, how do you go from that to like, okay, let's talk about hockey again. So the Flyers win this game if what?
Like I said, I think they have to get to that 3-goal threshold. And I really hope that Travis Konecny can continue scoring. I think that, he's the one with the hottest stick right now. And that I think that they really just have to stop Erik Carlsson and Timo Meier, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Now, I think the other big thing for the Flyers is staying out of the penalty box, because the penalty kill is not good. And the power play, honestly, if the Sharks take a penalty, it's probably a good thing for them because the Flyers power play is dreadful. So, the time you want to, the more time the Flyers are on the power play is probably good for the opponent. And I'm very sad about that. But the thing is, they do have the talent to score power play goals. Like we've seen them make the moves and do some really good set plays that have worked. They just, can't figure out how to get around traffic. And they just have this doubt about how to get around traffic and don't really know how to anticipate where each other is going to be. And that's been a huge problem for their power play. So I think ultimately it's stay out of the penalty box and try to get to that magic 3-goal margin.
Yeah, I think for kind of, for the Flyers, if the Sharks lose this game, I guess it's kind of better. If Kaapo Kähkönen continues to kind of play the way he's played, right? And he's known to give up a couple soft goals here and there. And the defense, right, it's still, we know what Erik Karlsson can do, but outside of Erik Karlsson, it's a lot of just kind of guys, and they don't play the most structured defense. So if the Flyers can kind of attack that with their forwards, and I think that's the Flyers have to win this game at 5-on-5, as you said, with the power play. The Sharks penalty kill is second in the league, and then the Sharks power play is 14th in the league at 22%. And that's, I don't think even that number does the Sharks power play justice because of the way they started this season on the road and learning a new system. The power play took a little bit to get clicking, but now with Carlsson and kind of running the power play and Timo Meier being the biggest beneficiary, the power play has been a huge weapon for the Sharks. And if the Flyers penalty kill is as dreadful as you say it is, that could be a big problem for the Flyers. So kind of turning that into how the Sharks win this game. Kaapo Kähkönen, I think you can maybe get into a track meet with the Flyers, just because I don't think the goalie matchup here is anything super stellar. So if Kaapo Kähkönen does give up a couple soft ones, I think the Sharks can potentially make up for that. And especially the way the Timo Meier is playing right now. And he kind of has a thing with the Flyers where he scores a lot on the Flyers, right? He had his first career hat trick against the Flyers. Timo Meier scored also in his past 5 games right now. Erik Karlsson's on a 10-game point streak. And I think they keep it going. Unfortunately for you, Rachel. Unfortunately for us in the Tankathon standings, though, it's good for you in the tank, but bad for us. But I think the Sharks offense is going to be a little bit too much for the Flyers. I think the Flyers do find plenty of offense in this game, but I think the Sharks just have a little bit more on the forward department, a little bit more scoring. And the way Timo and Carlsson are playing right now, I don't know if there's anybody who can stop those two right now.
Yeah. Speaking of the offensive side for the Sharks, how's our old friend Oscar Lindblom doing? We miss him.
I know it's been tough. I was really, really excited about Oscar Lindblom signing because before he got cancer, I thought he was on his way to being like somebody special, like a top 6, potentially top line guy, right? potential 30 goal scorer, like on type of career season guy. And he just hasn't really been able to find his game, unfortunately, with the Sharks. I think he's been healthy scratched twice, and he's been kind of teetering on that, like being healthy scratched, but still playing type of thing because of a couple injuries here and there. But yeah, it's been a little bit rough for him in his first season in San Jose, and I think he's still trying to kind of figure out where he fits in with the Sharks right now. I thought he was going to kind of slide in on that second line with Couture and Barabanov. It's kind of been a rotating. We've had Matt Nieto, Nick Bonino, not like it's a bunch of household names there. I thought Lindblom would eventually win that spot, and he just hasn't been able to kind of rise up out of there. So he's been playing mostly fourth line minutes, and he scored a couple of games ago, finally got his first goal, but hasn't been the season I think everybody's been anticipating from Lindblom, unfortunately.
Yeah, God, I feel so bad.
Yeah, it's one of those stories where you're gonna look back. It's like if he didn't get sick, just how good he could have been, So
yeah,
unfortunately. So, Rachel, before we leave, who do you have winning?
I'm gonna say the Sharks, but I think it's gonna be something like 5-4 or 4-3.
Yeah, Sharks don't. Yeah, they don't. We are under. You always bet the over with Sharks games because it's just always like that. Yeah, I got the Sharks winning. I think it's 5-4. I think, like I said, I think the Flyers find some offense in this game, which is good. Especially on this road trip, help to find some offense for them. The Sharks will awfully definitely cure whatever ails your scoring woes. But yeah, I think the Sharks just have. I think the way, like I said, Timo's playing right now, and the way Carlson's playing right now, I think it's just a little bit too much for the Flyers. If Hart was playing, I might lean Flyers in this game, but yeah, and unfortunately, I think those two guys are just a little bit too much for anybody right now. So, Rachel, thank you so much. You said it all. Where can the people find you and Locked On Flyers, of course?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at @Miriam, and you can find Locked On Flyers at Locked On Flyers on Twitter and Instagram.
And also, of course, watch it on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts, right? So you can, of course, find me on Twitter at MyFryhole. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Listen wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, Amazon Music, you name it. You can listen to it. And, of course, watch this on YouTube as well. And we'll be back tomorrow with a recap of the Sharks Flyers, and then get you guys ready for a busy weekend in Sharks hockey. So until then, bye, friends.